Welcome back to the Journey of an Idea. I'm Brad Scheller, and this is part two of our series, and we're going to focus on product definition. In part one, we explored the stage gate process and evolutions of that, and how organizations systematically move ideas from concept to launch. Today, we're going to look deeper into something that determines whether your idea even deserves to go through that process. How do you know if you have a genuine innovation, and how do you discover what customers actually need? Here's why this matters to your career. The professionals who can identify real opportunities, not just incremental tweaks, and transfer customer frustrations into product specifications, those are the people who create value. That's hard to automate and impossible to outsource. So let's begin. So even though this is part two, we're now entering our section three, product definition. This is where we ask the fundamental questions. What exactly are we building? What type of innovation is this? And where did the idea come from in the first place? I call this phase discovering and defining innovation because there are two activities that are inseparable. You can't properly define what you're building until you understand what category of innovation you're pursuing. And that classification changes everything from your timeline to your team structure to how you pitch it to leadership. By the end of this section, you'll have frameworks to classify any innovation, identify where breakthroughs, ideas actually come from, and uncover the consumer needs that surveys completely miss. Now, this visual highlights again one of my superpowers, which is copy and pasting from Notebook LM into PowerPoint. But it's actually one of the most important distinctions in product development, the difference between invention and innovation. Now look at the left, the lab. This is where the ideas are born, supposedly. An invention says, here, it's a concept that works technically, but hasn't yet been proven if it can survive the marketplace. Companies have warehouses full of patents that never become products. Now look at the right side, the marketplace, innovation. And this is where the ideas cross the bridge to commercialization, used by real customers, real money, and creates actual value. And here's the key insight. There are 5 distinctive ways to innovate, and most people only think of the first one, the product. However, offerings about innovations is what people picture. A new product like the iPhone or a new service like Netflix streaming, it's tangible and obvious. But solutions innovation is even more valuable. This is where, for example, IBM shifted from selling hardware to selling business solutions. Same core capabilities, completely different value proposition. Platform innovation is what Amazon did with AWS. They created the foundation for other innovations to exist. App stores like the Apple Store or Google Store, marketplaces, operating systems. Those are examples. Value innovation is about capturing revenue differently. Adobe moved from selling box software to subscriptions. Same product, radically different business. And business model innovation is the most disruptive of all. Airbnb, Uber, they didn't invent, for example, Airbnb didn't invent hospitality. They redefined who provides it and how it's delivered. So when you're presenting an idea to leadership, being able to articulate what type of innovation you're proposing immediately signals that you're thinking strategically, not just creatively. This framework is essential. Before you ask, how should we build this? You need to ask, what kind of innovation is this? And let's walk through the 4 quadrants. Incremental innovation, for example, is the iPhone. It became iPhone 15 to this point, I think. Better camera, faster chip, predictable returns, low risk. This is where most corporate R&D budgets go, and for good reason. It protects market share. Radical innovation is genuine technological breakthrough. Think mRNA vaccines or quantum computing. High risk, potentially transformative, with long timelines and uncertain outcomes. Sustaining innovation, and this is the Clayton Christensen's crucial insight, serves existing customers better. More features, better performance, higher price points. Incumbents usually win here because they have the customer relationships and distribution. And that's important to remember. But disruptive innovation, this is where companies die. It starts perhaps by traditional measures that overlooks customers or creates entirely new markets. Netflix versus Blockbuster. The product that looks inferior today becomes the market leader tomorrow. And that often happens. You start slower, you build up. And it's changing also under time. And I'll get to that in another section. And here's why this matters to your career. In a room full of people debating features and timelines, being the one who can articulate exactly where an innovation fits in the competitive landscape is how you differentiate yourself. It signals to leadership that you're thinking strategically and that you understand how to protect the organization from becoming another Kodak, becoming the cautionary tale. Now, the Christensen Institute expanded on this framework to give us more precise language. And let's go through each type. So, sustaining innovation. That's improvements for your best customers, the Apple iPhone upgrades, higher margins, loyal base, predictable growth. Disruptive innovation splits into several subtypes. The low-end disruption is what CVS Minute Clinic did for traditional doctor visits, a simpler, cheaper option that incumbents dismissed because it served less profitable customers until it didn't. New market disruption creates customers where none existed before. Smartphones versus laptops, not a replacement, but a new use case entirely. Market creating innovation is the most powerful and the least common. Nigeria's Indomie noodles didn't just sell food, they created jobs, distribution networks, and economic development alongside profit. And hybrid innovation combines disruptive technologies with sustaining business models. Hybrid cars maintain core driving experience while introducing electric technology gradually. And efficiency innovation is often overlooked. Toyota's just-in-time production didn't just create new products, but it freed up cash and made the company more competitive. Now, when you're evaluating opportunities or pitching to executives, this vocabulary gives you precision. Quote, we're pursuing low-end disruption in the SMB market, unquote, tells a completely different story than we're building something cheaper. Now, disruption may be the most overused word in business. Every startup claims to be disruptive, and most aren't. The Christensen Institute developed these 6 diagnostic questions to cut through the hype. And let me walk you through them. Question 1. Does it target non-consumers or people who are overserved? Real disruption doesn't sell or steal customers, it creates them or serves the ones incumbents ignore. Question 2. Is the offering not as good as incumbents by traditional measures? Now, this is counterintuitive. Early Netflix streaming had worse selection than Blockbuster. Early mobile phones had worse call quality than landlines. But it got better, not by day one, but over time, and it became sustaining and disrupting. Question 3. Is it simpler, more convenient, or more affordable? This is the wedge that gets you in the door. Question 4. Does it have technological enabler that can improve over time? Streaming got better, mobile networks improved. Without this trajectory, you're just cheap, not disruptive. Question 5. Is there a business model innovation that makes it sustainable? Low prices isn't enough. You need unit economics that work at scale. Question 6. Are incumbents motivated to ignore you? This is the trap. If Blockbuster had truly understood Netflix's trajectory, they would have responded earlier. But Netflix looks small and unprofitable by Blockbuster's metrics. So I encourage you to apply these 6 questions to any, quote, disruptive, unquote, opportunity you encounter. You'll be surprised at how few actually qualify and how powerful that analysis is when you present it to leadership. So we've classified types of innovation. Now the question is, where do these ideas come from in the first place? Now, traditionally, organizations looked at 3 sources. Customer-driven ideas start with pain points. What frustrates them? What workarounds have they invented? What jobs are they trying to get done that your current product doesn't address? These are often the richest source because they're grounded in real behavior. Market-driven ideas look at gaps and trends. What are underserved segments? Where's demand heading? What are competitors weak at? This requires good competitive intelligence and trend analysis, but is also very valuable. Then technology-driven, this area asks, what can we build now that we couldn't build before? New capabilities like artificial intelligence, cost reductions that make previously expensive solutions affordable, platform shifts to mobile or audiovisual. Now, these are all valid, and you should systematically be mining all three. But here's the thing. It's 2026. Now is a good time to think outside the box. The traditional playbook still works, but AI tools have opened up entirely new ways to identify opportunities. And let's take a look at the expanded landscape. Now, this slide expands our view to 4 categories of opportunity sources, including the emerging AI-enabled approaches. First, external scanning is what I call reading the environment. Pestle analysis, product, political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental factors. Those are all very important to look at for competitive intelligence. Patent mining to see where R&D dollars are flowing. Social listening on sites like Reddit and Quora and others, Instagram, etc. That's listening to try to catch emerging sentiment before it becomes a trend. They're valuable sources of information. Customer-centric approaches puts the user at the center. The jobs to be done interviews, voice of customer research, lead user research, finding the extreme users who've already invented solutions and using observation where you watch what people actually do, not what they say they do. This is a great source. Internal sources are often overlooked. Your employees have ideas. I mentioned previously about the whiteout that was invented by a secretary who needed to correct her typo mistakes. Sales and support teams hear customer friction points first. R&D pipelines contain shelved concepts that might be ready for market now. And now we have AI-enabled opportunity identification, trend analysis at scale, gap detection in markets, concept generation that explores possibilities humans might miss, and synthetic users. These are AI-generated persona that can simulate customer responses to concepts before you've spent money on prototypes. A lot of research has come out about this, and it's very accurate, very, very valuable, and speeds time to market significantly. The key insight at the bottom is crucial. Successful companies don't wait for ideas. They systematically mine for ideas, and this is a discipline, not luck. Now, this slide represents how my mind works in terms of a whole bunch of stuff going on that I have to try to sort out, but it's an unconventional sources of view. The approaches that separate truly innovative organizations from everyone else. And let me highlight a few key areas. The SET or set factor framework in the upper left. That's scanning social trends, economic forces, technological advances. And this is about having an always-on sensing capability. AI can now monitor patents, academic research, and social media sentiment continuously, alerting you to emerging patterns. Lead user co-creation is one of the highest value techniques. These are the passionate users who intense product usage reveals needs that average customers have not yet articulated. 3M, for example, built an entire innovation methodology around lead users. The open source in software is another example of how people are taking ideas of existing products and modifying them to provide leading edge solutions. And you'll later find that companies in the AI world are taking these ideas and incorporating them into their products. Open innovation licensing flips the traditional R&D model. Instead of inventing everything in-house, you license ideas from outside or license your unused patents to others. And the circular economy principles, repair, rethink, recycle, reuse, reduce, reuse. And this is increasingly important for sustainable product design and regulatory compliance. Let me share a personal example about cross-industry thinking. When I was consulting in the 90s, way back before some of you were born, probably, I worked with Reader's Digest as they were implementing stage gate processes. They had a frustrating problem. Temp workers were being hired in mass quantity daily, but they couldn't get a properly configured computer for almost a week. Think about that. You hire someone for immediate productivity and they sit waiting for IT. I looked at how McDonald's and Burger King solved a similar just-in-time problem. They didn't cook every burger from scratch when you order. They maintain ready inventory that gets assembled rapidly as objects. Now, I applied some of the model to IT provisioning. Have vendors maintain inventory of standard equipment configurations that could be deployed in hours and not days. The result, time to equip the temp dropped from 3 to 5 days to 3 to 5 hours. Now, that's the power of thinking about analogies that might work, looking outside your industry for solutions to apply inside it. And this is exactly the kind of unconventional sources that separate good product thinkers from great ones. Now, I briefly mentioned open innovation, and that's where you challenge the traditional R&D model, the assumption that all smart people work for you. Now, there are two directions to consider. First, the outside-in outcomes. The nothing invented here syndrome is shut down. This is where companies integrate external technologies and customer feedback directly into their business models. Procter & Gamble's Connect Plus Develop program explicitly seeks external innovations because they recognize that no matter how many brilliant scientists they employ, there were more brilliant scientists outside of these walls. Apple has used this for their touch screens and for their actual screen covers, the glass that goes outside their phones. They license outside innovations. Now, the inside out overcomes not sold here syndrome. This is where internal ideas that aren't being used in-house are commercialized externally through licensing or spin-offs. IBM has generated billions from licensing patents they weren't using in their core business. This collaborative ecosystem at the bottom shows three powerful approaches. The customer co-creation, where firms and customers share resources to create value together. Lego's ideas is a perfect example. Open source community and software is another great example. Emerging lead users, these passionate early adopters whose prolonged product use services unarticulated needs. Lego, the case, is an example of how they embrace this concept. And transforming products into platforms, where opening innovation allows external developers to build on top of your infrastructure. The iPhone became exponentially more valuable when Apple let third-party developers create apps. Now, for your careers, understanding open innovation models means you can propose partnerships, licensing deals, and ecosystem plays, not just internal development projects. This is a much broader strategic toolkit. Now let's transition from where ideas come from to how we understand what customers actually need. And we start with a famous quote attributed to Henry Ford. Quote, "If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses," unquote. Now, whether Ford actually said this is debated, or whether I just made it up through AI, we'll never know. But the insight is profound. Customers can articulate their products and problems and frustrations, but they cannot envision solutions. That's your job. Look at the iceberg model here. There are 4 levels of customer need. At the surface are stated needs. The explicit wants customers can tell you directly. These are what surveys and focus groups capture easily. Below that are latent needs, hidden and unconscious. These are discovered through observation of behavior, not by asking for opinions. You watch what people do, not just what they say. Deeper still are emotional needs, the feelings and desires that drive decisions. People don't buy a drill because they want a drill. They buy because they want a hole. Or really, they want a shelf. Or really, they want their living rooms to feel organized. At the deepest level are social needs, connection, and status. Why do people pay premium prices for products with visible logos? Look at the table on the right. Each level requires different data sources and offers different innovation potential. Stated needs come from interviews and surveys, but they only lead to incremental improvements, the must-haves. Latent needs come from observation and behavioral data, and they lead to radical innovations, the delighters. Emotional and social needs come from jobs to be done analysis, and they create brand loyalty and vision. The lesson at the bottom is critical. Customers can articulate their problems and frustrations. They often can't envision solutions, and that is your job. And speaking of jobs, let's go deeper with Steve Jobs' perspective. You've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. This iceberg visual makes the distinction crystal clear. Above the waterline are articulated needs, what I call the faster horse trap. They are surface level requests, the features customers explicitly state they want. The Henry Ford warning applies here. If you ask a customer, they'd say faster horses. The limitation of direct asking is that users know their problems but rarely understand the best technological solutions. They don't understand what I call the art of the possible. Below the waterline are unarticulated needs, the innovation zone. This is where breakthrough opportunities live. As Jobs said, some people say, give the customers what they want. But that's not my approach. Our job is to figure out what they're going to want before they do. And that's an incredibly valuable statement. These latent and underlying needs are frustrations that or desires that customers face but cannot yet name or articulate. The goal, and this is the key takeaway, is understanding underlying needs, not just recording expressed wants. This requires interpretation and insight, not just data collection. And this is where the human element and your opportunity lie. The slide promises 4 techniques for assessing this innovation zone, and that's what we're going to cover next. Now, here are 4 techniques for uncovering unarticulated customer needs, the ones that lead to breakthrough innovations. Technique number 1, from observation to insight. Watch, don't ask. Look for workarounds that customers have normalized. The things they do that they've stopped noticing are inconvenient. Note frustrations they dismiss with, it's always been done this way. That phrase signals opportunity. Track time and effort spent, hidden pain points they've accepted, and ask why 5 times. Why did this occur? Dig past the stated complaint to the root cause. Technique number 2, what they say versus what they need. This table is powerful. When customers say faster horses, the need was get there quicker, and the solution was the automobile. Bigger hard drive meant music anywhere, the iPod plus iTunes. Better flip phone meant internet in a pocket, the iPhone. More file cabinets meant find documents instantly, cloud storage. The pattern is clear. Don't take feature requests at face value. Translate them into underlying needs. Technique number 3, questions that go deeper. Instead of what features do you want, ask, walk me through the last time this frustrated you. Instead of would you buy this, ask, what did you try before giving up? Instead of what's missing, ask, show me how you work around it now. Technique number 4, key principles. Prioritize ethnographic observations over surveys. Conduct jobs to be done interviews over feature wish lists. Get prototype reactions over concept descriptions. Analyze behavioral data over stated preference. Now, the quote at the bottom here captures it perfectly. The goal is to see what customers have stopped noticing. This is a skill you can develop, and it's one of the most valuable capabilities you can bring to any company, any organization, any product team. Next, we move from understanding needs to translating them into something engineers can build. And this is the from voice to blueprint, the path from customer input to product specifications. The left side shows capturing the total voice of the customer. You need both what customers and users say in surveys and interviews and what they do through actual observation and empathic design. Remember, articulated needs are what customers readily verbalize, but unarticulated needs, the pain points discovered through observation, that's where innovation lies. The key principle, focus on the what, not the how. Translate raw statements into positive attributes focused on consumer benefits, not specific technical solutions. The right side here shows building the technical specification. First, you translate qualitative needs to quantitative metrics. Feels light becomes mass less than 2.5 kilograms. Charges fast becomes 80% charge in under 20 minutes. Then you define the design space with two values, the ideal target that would delight customers and the marginally accepted threshold required for commercial viability. Finally, competitive benchmarking ensures your specifications meet or exceed market best performance standards. Look at three examples in the middle here. Source input. I hate when the caps fell off, becomes interpreted need. The cap stays attached during use. The final spec, retention force greater than 10 newtons. Source input. I wish it was easier to carry becomes the product must be easy to transport becomes total mass less than 1.5 kilograms. Source input. It needs to charge fast becomes the battery reaches utility quickly becomes 80% charge in under 20 minutes. This translation process is a fundamental project management skill, and it's how you turn customer research into actionable engineering requirements. Now, this visual completes the process that we just talked about from initial customer research to validated specifications. And the left side's already been discussed, but let's continue on the right side. So again, phase 0 is capturing the voice of the customer. You're distinguishing between articulated needs, what they verbalize in focus groups, and unarticulated needs, which are the pain points discovered through observation. This is the fuzzy front end, where market research and user needs studies maximize front end decisions and minimize expensive downstream corrections. The power of observation is critical here. Watching customers use products in natural settings reveals needs they don't know they have. IDEO famously uses fictional user archetypes to visualize these behaviors, and now you can do that through AI-generated persona. Phase 1, the interpreting raw data into need statements. Now, raw feedback like I hate when the cap falls off gets translated into positives. The cap must stay on during use. You're focusing on not how to solve it. The laddering technique helps you get to underlying values. Start with a feature. The phone is thin. Ladder up to the benefit. It's easier to store, so I use it more often. Ladder up again to the value. Increased usage, increased outcomes. Now, phase 2 is bridging the gap with specifications. Product specifications are precise, measurable descriptions of what the product must do. The bridge between quantitative or qualitative desires and engineering targets. You set the ideal values, aspirational goals for delight, and marginally acceptable values, the minimum viable threshold. This defines your design space. The House of Quality, or QFD, is a systematic matrix that links customer needs directly to technical specifications, ensuring that the voice of the customer is never lost during development. Finally, validation and iteration uses spiral development, iterative loops of building prototypes, testing with customers, revising to ensure the design still meets the original requirements. This entire journey is what separates wishful thinking from disciplined product development. Next, we need to talk about a very important framework in product development. It's called the Kano model, and it's developed by Noriaki Kano in 1984. And this framework is to allow us to prioritize features based on their impact on customer satisfaction. There are three categories of features based on this model, and they behave very differently. So you have the must-haves. These are the basics. These are features that don't delight when present, but cause dissatisfaction when missing. These are table stakes. A car must have brakes. A phone must make calls. No one praises you for having them, but everyone complains if they're absent. Missing means dissatisfied. Present means neutral. The performance features, this linear relationship, work on a more is better basis. They're directly comparable across competitors. Better gas mileage means happier customers. Faster processor, happier customers. These are what customers typically request in surveys because they can articulate and compare them. The delighters or the exciters are unexpected features that create joy and competitive advantage. They're not expected, but when present, they create loyalty. A heated steering wheel, a surprise feature that solves a problem customers didn't even know they had. These come from understanding unarticulated needs, what we call the innovation zone that we discussed earlier. The key insight in the box is crucial. Today's delighters become tomorrow's must-haves. Think about touchscreens. In 2007, a touchscreen phone was a delighter. Today, it's absolute must-have. This means you can never stop innovating. Yesterday's excitement becomes today's expectation. The strategic implication at the bottom summarizes this. It summarizes your product strategy. Ensure basics first, then differentiate through excitement features. When you're making feature prioritization decisions or presenting trade-offs to leadership, this Kano model gives you a vocabulary and framework that elevates the conversation beyond personal opinions to strategic analysis. This table applies Kotler's product levels framework to three real products. It's a powerful exercise for understanding what you're actually designing. So let's start. The iPhone. The core benefit isn't a smartphone, it's communication and connection. That's the fundamental job the customer is hiring this product to do. The actual product is the tangible thing, the design, the camera, the iOS brand, etc. But the augmented product, the ecosystem of Apple Care, iCloud, and seamless integration with other Apple devices is often what creates lock-in and loyalty. Tesla Model 3 is fascinating. The core benefit is transportation, getting from A to B. The actual product involves the electronic vehicle technology, minimalist design, and over-the-air updates. But the augmented product, the two supercharger network and autopilot, addresses two biggest barriers to EV adoption, range anxiety and driving fatigue. Peloton's core benefit isn't a bike, it's fitness and motivation. The actual product is hardware and a screen, but the augmented product, the live classes, community, liveaboards, that's where the magic happens. People don't say subscribe for the bike, they stay for the social connection and accountability. The design insight at the bottom is essential. Start with the core benefit. Never skip straight to the features. Always ask, what job is the customer hiring this product to do? So when you're defining a product or presenting a concept, being able to articulate all three levels demonstrate that you understand the full value proposition, not just the feature list. Now we've covered a lot of ground in this part two. Let's pull it together. You now have multiple valid frameworks for thinking about innovation and customer needs. Levels of innovation, thinking outside the traditional product box to consider solutions, platforms, value models, and business model innovations. Types of strategic innovation, knowing whether you're pursuing incremental, radical, sustaining, or disruptive innovation, and what that means for resource allocation and risk. Sources for new concepts, systematically mining customer-driven, market-driven, technology-driven, and AI-enabled opportunities. Uncovering unarticulated needs using observation, better questions, ethnographic research to find what surveys miss. Translating wants into product specifications, the discipline of moving from qualitative customer input to quantitative engineering requirements. And the Kano model for feature categorization, prioritizing must-haves, performance features, and delighters. The key insight on this slide is what I want you to carry away from, and always make sure to quote me exactly. Just kidding. Opening your mindset to how to develop new ideas and nurture them is a transformative event. And here's why that matters to your career and your future. Awareness of how ideas are made from books, people, experiences turns the world into your workshop and your potential into performance. When you understand how to turn other people's ideas into your own, you stop competing at the current level and start creating a new level. You unlock a tier of performance and opportunity that most people never reach. This isn't just about product design. It's about how you approach problems, how you create value, and how you make yourself indispensable in a world where AI is automating routine work. The people who can identify real opportunities, understand what customers truly need, and translate that into specifications, those people create value. Those people will always be in demand. And I want you to be one of that group. So that's what we're building on in this course, and I'll see you in part 3.